Good evening. I'd like to call the Superintendent Search Screening Committee to order. I'd like to start with asking everyone to stand and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. This evening, we have Don Macrino here. He is a representative from Hazard, Young, and Attia, who is the search firm that we have contracted with is going to help us with our superintendent search. In front of you are some documents, but I'm going to ask Mr. Macrino to please come to the podium so he can go through the timeline and tell us a little bit about what the search firm is going to do and how you're going to identify the various attributes that we will need in our superintendent.
Thank you, Barry. Good evening. My name is Don Macrino. I've been to town once, or twice actually, and I don't think I met most of you the first time I was here, so I'll just give you a very brief introduction. I've been an educator for 45 years. Started in the public school in New London, the other whaling community, not too far away. I then went to Waterford as an administrator, which is a town in the suburbs. I retired for 2 weeks, and now I serve as a headmaster at a Catholic school in Uncasville, Connecticut, and still enjoy education very much. I've served on the national board for the National Association of Secondary School Principals. I've had the unfortunate pleasure of lobbying in Washington, D.C. with the Department of Education, and it's great to be here in New Bedford for this very important task that all of you have been willing to take part in. So I would like to just outline what we're going to do tonight. By way of introduction, I'll talk about some of the steps that we're going to go through in the process and how we define our process and how it's a very transparent process. I will then take you through the timeline, which you have in front of you, and there may be some adjustments to that as we go, but this is really a preliminary timeline just to give us a pretty good idea of how the process is going to work. And then I'll explain to you what the focus groups are and how we select those. And we will actually do a focus group using you as the first focus group, where we sort of define the type of characteristics we're looking for in the next leader of the Bedford schools. And certainly throughout the evening, if you have any questions at all, I'd be more than happy to answer those for you. And if I don't have an answer, I can get it for you. Okay? So first, the essence of our search is really to delve as deeply into your community as we can and make the search as transparent as we possibly can. We do that in a several-day period where myself and the other associate, by the way, his name is Ed McCormick. He's out of Poughkeepsie, New York, and he generally works alongside of me. But because the distance is so great, I decided to come tonight, and he'll be here for the focus groups the next time we get together in New Bedford. We establish, and you'll see on your timeline that we establish the focus groups, and we also establish an online survey. By doing that, we're able to collect from the community, from all aspects of the community, some of the essential characteristics that we're going to need. And I'll talk more about that in a moment. I would say to this screening committee that the idea of confidentiality is extraordinarily important. And so we can get the best candidates. You can imagine that sitting superintendents who may be nearby or far away don't like to reveal their cards too far in advance, certainly to the municipalities in which they're working right now. So it's important as applications come in and you actually get to see those applications that we bring forward, that remains extremely confidential. You also need to remember, as we go through this process, that while we're interviewing the candidates, they're also interviewing us. Over the past several years, there's been a rather significant decrease in the number of people seeking positions at this level, at the superintendent's level. We search long and hard and far to find the best candidates, but it's never the case usually where they're lining up at our front door. They will examine this community as they do every community. They'll look at some of the strengths and weaknesses from their perspective. So just keep in mind that they'll be sort of interviewing us as we're interviewing them. So it's a two-way process. I'm going to go to the timeline next, and you have that in front of you, and I'll just explain to you really the important features here. We've already had the planning meeting. That was when I think a few firms, I know we were one of them, came and spoke before the school committee. And then there was a selection process that took place that evening, and we were informed that our firm was selected. I came back to New Bedford on the 22nd to meet with the mayor to complete the planning, and that was a negotiation for the price that would be paid to our firm with the mayor, and it was also to complete the timeline, and that's what we have. Now, this timeline is somewhat tentative. Some of the dates are pretty much in stone, unless we were to have inclement weather. But some of the other dates can shift slightly depending on how the process goes and when we actually formally begin. So, in the very next hours or day or so, the advertising will go out nationwide with a description of New Bedford and the fact that the position is open. We will develop an online survey, and that survey will be available to 5 or 6 groups in New Bedford. And generally speaking, those groups involve the parents, and you must identify as one. You can't go into 2 categories. But you can take a rather brief online survey if you're a parent, a member of the community. You may not have children in the school system. Teachers, staff members who are not teachers, so that would be support staff, secretary, custodial, cafeteria, and so on, and administration. Those are the groups that have been identified, and those are generally the groups that take place in the survey. And that survey will glean, hopefully, several hundred comments, maybe thousands of comments. It all depends on your community and how active they are, and if they go to the website to actually do the survey. And that will be advertised at the appropriate time so people know just how to do it and where to go. On the 5th and 6th of February, my associate and I will be in New Bedford from early morning to late in the evening on both days, and we will be interviewing a number of groups. Now, the groups that are most commonly interviewed, let me go through those right now so that you have that. And there are actually some choices here, but I will just tell you typically what communities do in terms of the focus groups. So a focus group is a time that we schedule in advance, and people will come into a room where either my associate and I are there together, or when we're in separate rooms and we do an interview, and I'll actually take you through that interview in just a moment. But the groups that we tend to speak with are members of the school committee. We do central office or district administrators and building administrators. We sometimes do those separately, either with the central office group and then with the building group, or we can bring all of the administrators together and do that collectively. That's a choice that you can actually make this evening if you wish. We interview teachers from all of the schools, and we do that in a forum setting. We would select a time that is convenient at the end of the school day usually, and we would have the teachers meet at a central location. We generally do that once. If we needed to do it more than once, we're able to do that. In addition to that, we have a community forum which is open to all of New Bedford. And again, we select a time and a place during the course of these 2 days when that would be most convenient. And anybody is welcome to come to that. And even if you've participated in a focus group earlier, you can still come out and go to that focus group. So I don't know if you wanted to make a decision regarding the administrators, or if you wanted to add any groups to that, or if there's anyone you think I've left out. Any thoughts?
Go ahead, Josh, and then I'll go down to you.
Thank you. How are you, Don? Josh Amaral, I'm a member of the school committee here. Happy to have you aboard.
Thank you, Josh.
Just to weigh in on that particular thing, I think it's critically important that we talk to as many principals and as many central office administrators as possible. Because I think they have sort of a unique perspective, more so in this case than even in other districts they might have. So I think it's important to talk to as many as possible. I think that it probably makes sense to do it in 2 different settings, one where the principals are separate from the central office, but I think if it's a matter of talking to the most people, I think that's more important than segregating the groups.
Thank you, Gail.
Hi, good afternoon. Good evening,
Hi.
I should say. Gail Force from the YWCA, Southeastern Mass,
Hi.
community member here. 2 questions. That's a week away. It seems a little ambitious. Is that enough time to get the word out, especially for community members to participate? And my second question is on the survey. Is that going to be multilingual? Is it only in English? And what if people that do not have online capabilities, how would they be able to participate?
It was requested, I'll do the second question first. The survey was requested in English, Spanish, and Portuguese.
Okay, thank you.
The first question is if we coordinate, and I believe it's going to be with John, and we saturate the community with the information. And I'm not sure if you have a calling system or how you're going to get it out, but it is enough time. Generally, there's not a great deal of lead time. There's a desire to get this up and running as quickly as we can because we're at a prime time to get the best candidates. And
I just don't want people to be left out if they don't have online capabilities.
Right.
To be able to participate.
Yeah.
And again, in advertising the forum, particularly the community forum, if people are not able to go online and they're able to come to the forum, they can express their ideas that way. So we try to hit it from all angles. And we usually get a pretty good saturation from the community with both of these venues.
Okay, thank you.
Any other members of the committee? We know, Tom?
Yeah, just in terms of structure, Tom Kelly.
Yes, Tom.
Just in terms of structuring the input process, we've already received some input from community groups. We recently got a letter from the New Bedford Birth to 3 Partnership that has very articulately described work that they've done in the past, their interest in having this transition be one that includes that and creates the opportunity to move forward with it. So I'm thinking in terms of community input, okay, certainly this could be community input, this letter. I think it would be good community input. But there are various groups of interested people within the community who have a relationship with the school and certainly a big stake in having this search be successful. So in saying community input, I'm just asking, is there going to be a way to differentiate that, to allow for this type of kind of focused input?
That is your choice. We will try to accommodate as many individuals or groups as we can schedule in the 2-day period. And if it is felt that the community forum is not the place, for example, to talk to this group from whom you received the letter, and this committee decided that they wanted to invite that group in, or a representative of that group and other groups, that could become a focus group. Community organizations or community groups such as that, they could come together, for example, at a scheduled time.
And just one other thing, I didn't see on this list how, other than the mayor, the city government role. I mean, is there an interest in talking to the city council as a group, or other city government representatives? I don't know if that's something that's been discussed at the school committee, but...
We haven't discussed it, but, I mean, certainly elected officials in the city, represent a certain constituency and have a lot to bring to the table. So whether if that's through a dedicated focus group or the community forum, or I'm sure many they'll avail themselves of the opportunity to sort of testify there.
I think one of the things, and we talked a little bit about this in the general overview today, that one of our tasks this evening would be to identify a little bit of that for them, to help them kind of pinpoint where they're going to go in the stakeholder groups, whether we think 1 or 2 general meetings that allow large numbers of people, whether we thought community organizations, whether we thought city government and other regional officials. You may have somebody, state representative or someone from that as a specific focus group. We certainly can add those. And his original list is very long. And we talked about those that are most common, with the idea that as the steering committee, that we might provide some guidance as to others that they might want to look at. And whether we leave it with administrators, we had some discussion whether or not district administrators of building, that's why we kind of put it together, again, to leave it to this group, whether we separate them or whether we put them as one of the focus group. So it would give people a little better opportunity to do that within that 2-day management. And one of the things, Dale, you talked about is this timeline is very aggressive. And here's the pluses and minuses. On the one hand, it's aggressive so that we can be ready at the end of February to do our work, so that the school committee has about 4 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks to do site visits and interviews to do their work. The concern was if you extend the advertising, extend the focus group, the school committee is probably not going to be able to complete its task till the end of April, which is the end of hiring season, so many people will have already taken a position elsewhere. We know even now that a couple of people we thought might be candidates in our search have already taken positions elsewhere. So those were December, January appointments, so that's kind of the balance that we're trying to achieve here, is on the one hand of having an open and having as much input as we can, and at the same time trying to keep to something that gives us the best opportunity for candidates to be available for us. So, but our task this evening is to hear this, but also to talk about who else we might like to add in there, so that they can do their work and be able to gather the kind of input that they will need in order to go forward to identify the characteristics of a successful superintendent here. So I'll turn it back to you, Don.
Would it be helpful for me to repeat those that are the norm and the ones that I've got checked off? And again, this is your choice and that can change, but I have school committee members, I have central office or district level administrators as well as building administrators, either together or separately. I have teachers, I have students, and I have the community forum that would involve anybody who wanted to come. And generally, it's a wise idea to invite support staff in a separate group as a focus group. And again, that would be across the board. It would be administrative assistants, it would be cafeteria folks, it would be maintenance, and so on. So that's what I have so far, and we can certainly add to it.
Did you say parents, is that a separate group?
I did, I hope I said parents.
Okay.
The parents come at the community forum.
Okay, so that's not a separate group? They're part
No,
of the community
if
forum.
there's a parent group that, like a PTO or PTA, that has a representative board, and they would like to come to do a focus group, we could certainly do that. And then remember, parents have the opportunity, those who have access to a computer will have access to the forum, to the online survey as well.
Don, in one of your focus groups, are there like questions that guide the discussion? How
There
does that
are
differ?
three questions, and you're actually going to answer those three questions in a few minutes. And I mean, it's perfectly okay to look ahead.
Yep.
We won't take points off for that. There are really just three areas. What do the stakeholders value regarding your schools? What is it about New Bedford that is most cherished and is working? What strengths do they desire to retain and build upon? So that's number one. Number two, as you can see, is what are the issues this district currently faces, and as importantly, will be facing in the next 3 to 5 years. And then the last, what are the personal and professional characteristics are you and your community expecting in the superintendent? So those are the three basic questions, and then of course at the end we always ask if there are any recommendations that you have. Those are pretty broad, and we sort of lead folks through it, but we also let people talk. And we don't write names down, we don't write, comments that are inappropriate and that sort of thing. But very quickly, you'll find that certain characteristics begin to emerge. And it's a little different in each city or each town. And go ahead.
I was just, the reason I asked, I'm just trying to get a handle on, I think the groups that you mentioned as candidates for a focus group makes sense. Those are going to tend to be smaller settings where there's going to be more of a dialogue back and forth, as opposed to the forum, which will be, sort of rapid fire.
Yeah.
Or even, I suppose, someone along here, a group or a person could submit some sort of written, testimony or something. And I think because of the compacted timetable, which I think is essential, we just have to do it, it's best if we pick the focus groups that we would like to get in that small setting to get into a little bit more of a deeper conversation.
Sure.
And if there are other constituent groups out there that want to weigh in, they can either do so at the forum or written testimony. I followed the Massachusetts Commission of Search pretty closely, and they solicited written feedback, and I think they got 100-something pages of that. Granted, it's a different search, but
Sure.
I think there's ways to involve other people in the process beyond just the focus groups.
And also, during the course of our focus groups in scheduling, sometimes there's a half-hour downtime. And a group of teachers at that point will say, hey, we're members of a certain department and we're free at this time, we'd like to come in and chat. We're more than welcome, and we take that information and we put it in just as we do all the other. So every opportunity we get to speak to members of the community, stakeholders, we take that opportunity. But this is your opportunity to give us kind of a roadmap so we can actually schedule those, keeping in mind that there will be other people who speak to us throughout the process anyway. Any other thoughts?
Anybody else have any other comments or questions?
Okay. So let me just tell you briefly, I started to talk about this at the very beginning, but I wanted to go back to it because it is important. After we cast our nets out there and get as much information as we can, and it'll be from the right, it will be from the left, it will be positive, it will be negative. We get a huge cross-section, and that's really what you hope to get. We compile all of the data that we receive, both from the survey, the electronic survey, and from the focus groups. And then we compile for you two documents. We compile the leadership profile, which is a boiling down of everything that we got. Now, I have to tell you, if out of the hundreds of people we speak to, we get one person who has a particular complaint or a particular accolade, it's not likely that that's going to show up in the profile. It's those themes that are repeated consistently throughout the process that you really want to emerge to the top, because that's really the community speaking. So once we have all of that data, as I say, we compile it and we create a leadership profile. And in that leadership profile, there will be bulleted desired characteristics that this community, it's your report. We simply take all of the data and we compile it and we put it in a readable form that is easy to use. It's based on that we then, as the applications come in, and there could be tens of applications, there could be scores of applications, or there could be hundreds of applications. And remember, they'll be from all over the country. The associates, myself and the other associate, then begin to whittle that down, and we pair those with the profile that you've created. So this is something that New Bedford specifically has created. We look for matches from all of these candidates that are coming to us from either the region, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and so on, or you may have a candidate from the Midwest or out West who fits the bill and is deserving of a second look. So that's how the process works. And it's very important to remember that while we're whittling down the applicants, you're the ones who have actually selected them by virtue of creating this profile. That's the roadmap that we follow. Are there any questions about that? Okay.
Any questions?
If not, then let's go right to, you are now a focus group. And I would ask you to do what I'm going to ask all of the other focus group members to do. So you can take a look at that first question: what do stakeholders value regarding your schools? What is it about the schools in New Bedford presently that we want to retain and build upon? And you don't have to raise your hand or anything. Please just freely speak your mind. Yes.
As a home here, what New Bedford High School has done to turn around is really improve upon technology, and I think with the correct training and development on the student side and teacher side and admin side, I think the push for technology can be improved, but definitely has to be retained, and I think it can start trickling down into the middle school and elementary schools, so the students aren't seeing it for the first time on a larger scale at the high school, but they're coming into the high school with some kind of experience.
So there's a strong infrastructure of technology at the high school at this
Yes.
point, and you would like to see that throughout the schools.
Yes.
Hi, my name's Ann,
I am.
and I am a grandparent of a special needs student. And that this is one of the things in our community that is, needs to be focused on, because many of the teachers that I speak to, the technology is outdated, they need more support, and this is one of the things that I think should be addressed with our new superintendent.
So that would be under the needs, that would be greater
Oh, all right,
technology?
yeah.
No, it's okay, you
Yep.
can bounce back and forth, but greater technology
And more support
for special needs.
for special needs students.
I think one of the strengths that I've always felt with the schools here is the neighborhood, the feeling of the neighborhoods here and the schools as a center of the neighborhood. And I think that's one of the strengths of the district, the neighborhood schools, and I think that's one of the things that, as I've talked to people in the community, they are very aware of their neighborhood, their particular school, generations who go to the same school, and have a commitment to that school. I think that's one of the strengths, that's one of the areas that people build upon here. And I think that would be something that they would like to retain. The idea of going to large elementary schools, let's say, is something that probably is not of value for this community.
Okay?
I think we do have very committed teachers, principals, staff, and administrators. I think that can only continue to grow and be enhanced throughout the future, but we have really student-focused staff and teachers in our schools, and we want to be able to encourage that and broaden that moving forward. And I also think we have a very large community that has been accessed more so than ever over the last several years. We want to keep that open door policy where now, there's internships available for high school students at local organizations. And I think we can improve upon that with a lot more businesses going forward, having programs coming in, having students going out, and I think we can continue to grow that going forward.
Thank you. Other positives that you would like to see retained or built upon? It can be curricular, it can be security, it can have to do with diversity. And if you'd like to give an area of growth, we can jump down to that certainly, back and forth.
Well, I'll speak to that. On the diversity issue, I think we've done better, but I think there's still more work to be done. Our staff isn't quite yet there yet as far as being reflective of the population that we're serving. So I think that's still a challenge for us. I think we need to work a little bit harder at that as far as
hiring more diverse staff.
Hiring more diverse staff, having a professional development career ladder, which I know has started, but could work, maybe improve upon that with maybe paraprofessionals or other teachers that are currently on staff that we can work with to provide them the tools that they need to go on for either being a teacher or administrator, et cetera. But I think we don't have, in my own opinion, that the staff is not reflecting the community right now. I think it's better, but I think we can do better.
Okay, thank you very much.
I think one of the strengths that I've always seen in this community, and continues to be here, is a great deal of pride the community takes in the achievement of its young people, whether it's academic, but also whether the drama, music programs, athletic programs. I think that the community takes a great deal of pride and has been willing to support those activities. the academics certainly, and the type of additional programs that we've provided in all areas of the academic spectrum, but also in the values of keeping the co-curricular activities in place to be sure that there's something that helps all of our young people achieve. Even with economic challenges, they've always supported those areas, and I think this says a lot for the community.
Thank you.
How about specific characteristics that you're looking for in the next individual? So these would be personal and professional characteristics.
I'd like to see someone who is a leader in bringing people together, someone that's able to build consensus, relate to different people, and sort of empower them to do the heavy lifting. Someone that can delegate, someone that can relate to various groups and bring them together around a common goal.
I think one of the most important things is that whoever we look into has to support the teachers from top to bottom. They should be able to recognize them for their achievements that they've done, whether it's the years that they spent here, their dedications or whatever. These teachers need to be recognized, as well as the teachers, the paras, the custodians, whoever supports any of our schools. They're the backbone of all our schools.
So I put recognize and appreciate
And
teachers
appreciation,
staff.
yeah, correct.
Okay, good, thank you.
I'm a Valerian, superintendent of elementary school at Bedford. My name is Emma Valerius. I'm ESL teacher here on the elementary school level. And just to go back a little bit to what Gail was saying, we have a huge immigrant population here in our city, and various languages are spoken here. And I was just looking for someone like Gail was saying, who represents a diverse background or has awareness, experience in from various cultures or from various backgrounds, maybe multilingual, bilingual, or something along those lines that really demonstrates a diverse background or awareness or experience.
I've got cultural awareness and diverse background. And possibly bilingual.
I think somebody with a proven track record of turning districts around or leading districts into 21st century top educational districts in the country. Somebody preferably that has worked their way up through the ranks. Maybe started as a teacher, was building level administrator, so that they fit in the shoes of the constituents around them. Somebody that's going to make decisions for kids and what's best for kids, regardless of whether or not they're the most popular decisions out there. Supportive, articulate, urban experience would be nice.
Thank you.
I think on a simple level, they should be willing to up and move and live in the city that they're trying to change and move forward. So we're getting applicants from the local areas. They should want to live in Bedford and want to live in Bedford and want to be part of the Bedford community, not just on the outside, but on the inside.
Okay.
I think it's very important that the person be able to interact and present themselves to the community in a way that engenders support. So they need to be able to go to community events, speak at school community meetings, even on controversial topics, and sort of win the public over and inspire confidence in the public. we're going to always have challenges in New Bedford. We're always going to have, difficult situations. But it's how you can communicate that message to people, I think, that affects the way that the community perceives things. We know our schools are great. We know that we have all the positives that were just discussed here in our schools, but we need to find a way to, instill in each and every person in the city that we've got those things going, even when there may be a hard situation.
Okay, good, thank you. So I have summarized that by saying articulate and a consensus builder. Does that cover it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I used the quality of courage. I'm not sure, somebody mentioned not be afraid to take on the difficult issues, so that's certainly a characteristic you need if you're a superintendent. Any other qualities or?
Willing to be here long term. There's been a lot of turnaround at many levels, and I think that is not helping us. I think we need consistency across the board, and it starts from the top.
Yeah, can I say one more thing about that? Chris Garcia, to back on what you just said, also wants to be a long-term, but also wants to keep teachers and staff here long-term. Really wants to focus on retention and cultivating good educators and supporting them.
Thank you. I've got good wait time. I've spent a lot of time in the classroom, but I don't want to drag it out either. If you can go back to any of the three. Yes.
Well, I've been listening to people. I'm somewhat of an outside observer to the school department of the city of New Bedford. I've been involved in a lot of different ways, but someone who's actually working every day in the context of the district and what's happening in the district right now, certainly are the ones that should set the direction for this, because they're the ones that know best what's needed. But I think it needs to be mentioned that the next superintendent should have, as many teachers here have, but a relentless focus on student learning and positive outcomes for students. And that be the result of a style that is inspirational in nature, that is capable of involving people in the mission of the district through the process of encouragement, collaboration, team building. That it should be a cooperative approach rather than a top-down didactic approach. One of the things that I think is happening in New Bedford is that through the process that has occurred over the past several years, many people have honed their focus on the learning process, and that focus needs to be continued, but I think can be nurtured and expanded on and grown through a very fundamental focus on the fact that the most important variable in student learning is the quality of the teacher in the classroom. So the focus on learning has to go with a support for and an encouragement for student learning. It can't be based on a deficit philosophy of people are lacking something and they have to get better at it. It really needs to be based on a proactive growth learning strategy where people are exposed to experiences that nurture their beliefs and provide them with the tools they need to improve their practice. Teachers don't, in my opinion, do things that because they're the easiest thing to do. I mean, I've seen in my time a lot of teachers working a lot harder than they would need to do to achieve good outcomes. When they find something that they believe is better, they will use it. And I think it's important for someone who has the leadership skills and the talent, capacity to understand change and how change works effectively. I mentioned to someone last week that you can't bludgeon people to greatness. You have to encourage them and help develop a context that allows them to grow. If teachers come here to work and feel good about their practice and the efforts that they are making, then that's what's going to have them decide to stay here longer. Feeling good about the context in which they're working. So, you know, it's about a focus on learning, but an understanding, a real understanding how real learning occurs.
Thank you.
Dr. Kelly, you sure you're retired?
You know, did I mention it's really hard work?
Okay, I'll ask for your final thoughts on any of the three categories, if you have anything to add. And if not, I'll certainly be available on the 5th through 6th, and you can drop by during the day and put a bug in my ear, and I'll write some more things down. That's what it's all about. And if I can answer any final questions on what we've covered tonight or the timeline, I'll certainly try to do that.
I just have a few more questions. On the timeline, between February 12th, where the online survey closes, and the 27th, where a slate is presented to the screening committee, I was wondering if there's any way, I don't know what time goes into compiling the leadership report and going through those steps, but I'm wondering if there's any potential to save time there.
There really isn't. We compress that more than we usually do. We usually get several weeks to dissect the data and to write the report. The data can be done fairly quickly, but then we have to compose the report. And I wish we could compress it farther, but we're really at the limit of compressing things.
Yeah, sure, I can appreciate that. It's my understanding that your group will, in addition to just soliciting applications, will also sort of recruit?
Yes.
When possible. How does that process work?
Well, there's certainly a network among the associates. Many of us have done searches throughout New England, and we are aware of the active candidates. We're also aware of sitting superintendents who are doing a great job, and there are occasions where we call upon them and mention to them that a particular job is open. If they haven't seen it already, and they probably have, but sometimes they need a little bit of a nudge. And a lot of times, the candidate that you're going to end up with is not even looking for a job. They have to get a nudge, and they'll either get it from us, or they'll get it from a member of the community or an associate that's in the same organization that they may be in. So there are a number of ways to do it. We look at candidates who we know. We look at our network of people we're connected with through our educational practices, and that's how we do it.
Thank you.
Sure.
Lastly, I know the process sort of, we kind of started the process as a school committee, sort of without you, which is probably, I don't want to say rare, but a little different, in part because we wanted to keep to this timetable. And some of that led to your interaction with the search firm selection committee and the mayor's office through a lot of that work. At this point in time, your relationship and the firm's relationship is with this body?
That's correct.
Okay, so you're answerable to us and the school committee?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions before we let Mr. Macrino head back to Connecticut in the snow?
Well,
I'm sure we'll have some other questions.
Yes.
We will be in touch with you.
And please share my number. I'm sorry I didn't bring cards tonight, but certainly through the chair, you're welcome to contact me at any time. And I'm available. I'll be with you until the end of this process, and I mean that. So if there are questions that we can clear up or help you in any way, that's really what we're here for. And it's been a pleasure to meet all of you, and thanks very much.
Great,
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
One of the things that Dawn brought to our attention is the need to have an opportunity for community members to contact us. So we will set up an email address that will allow people to submit comments, questions, concerns to us, and we will put that out on both the city website and the school department website, so that they'll be able to contact the search committee, and we can also respond. In that regard, one of the items that I did want to touch upon was correspondence. Dr. Kelly spoke to that. I forwarded all of you a letter from the New Bedford Birth to Third Partnership. It's an early childhood group asking us to consider, as we look for characteristics of a superintendent, someone who is both familiar and supportive of early childhood education. So I'm sure that there will be other groups in the community, and we welcome questions and things that they feel that we need to focus on. So we will put that up. We should be able to do that tomorrow. But if you go to the city website and the school department website, there will be an email for the search committee so people can contact us. Any other questions that we have this evening in open session? So I'm going to ask the committee to go into executive session. I'm requesting an executive session under exemption 8 of the open meeting law, and that is as follows: to consider or interview applicants for employment by a preliminary screening committee. The chair is declaring that being an open meeting would be detrimental in obtaining qualified applicants. However, this shall not apply to any meeting, including meetings of a preliminary screening committee, to consider and interview applicants who have passed a preliminary screening. So that is, we will meet one time to talk about candidates. We will not meet multiple times. So I need a roll call vote to go into executive session.
I'll make the motion that we go into executive session.
Have a second?
Second.
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Dr. Kelly?
Yes.
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 We will go into executive session. At the close of executive session, we will return to open session for the sole purpose to adjourn. So we'll take a 5-minute recess.